I would like to call to order the June 1st, 2022 Citizen Advisory Committee meeting. Staff at this time, please call roll to establish a quorum.
At this time, I'm only asking those CAC members attending it in person to respond by saying here. When I call your name, I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. You'll see the red light at the top light up, so you know that it's on. Ryan Rossi. Michael Fitzpatrick.
Here.
James Garvin.
Here.
Mark Bruner.
Here.
Ramona Bean.
Here.
Paula Ryan. And she is online, which we'll add in a little bit. Jim Knight.
Here.
James Bonfiglio.
Here.
Richard Vazzalotti. Varissa Laldas. Sammy Brown. Mark Forrest. Oh, yep, there you go.
Here.
Thank you. Vijay Mishra. Francisco Gill. Myron Uman is absent. Terry Brown.
Here.
Thank you. Greg Fagan. The cities of Belglade, Green Acres, Jupiter, and Lake Worth Beach are all vacant currently, so they will be marked as absent for this meeting. Albert Richwagen. Wendang.
Here.
We do not have a quorum person.
Thank you. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. There are a few members who are requesting CAC permission to participate remotely. Those members are Paula Ryan, Richard Vazzalotti, Vijay Mishra, and Terry Brown. And they have all joined us virtually.
Okay, if we don't have any objection to allowing them to join virtually at this time. None? Okay, so we can allow them to participate virtually.
Thank you.
There are, since we don't have an in-person quorum, we're going to modify the agenda slightly to make time for those members that's attending late. So we're going to allow for public and member comments first, and then proceed with the liaison report. Are there any objections to allowing these items to move forward to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna proceed right to the public and member comments.
Perfect. And there are no public comments at this time.
Okay, are there any members, Michael Fitzpatrick?
I'd just like to say I have to go to a doctor's appointment, so I need to leave here at 3:15 if that becomes an issue.
Yep, no problem. There's somebody at the front door also, just to a note. Okay, are there 2:15, right? Okay. Are there any other member comments at this time? Well, seeing none, that was fast. We'll move to the liaison report. Jason, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So for the first item for the liaison report, we do have a member of the TVA has been promoted, Gregory Gabriel, to transit coordinator. He was a transit planner 2 on the program development team, the team that I'm on, and he's been promoted to senior planner. And he's now our transit coordinator on the multimodal development team. So congratulations, Greg. I don't see him in the room, but he's probably watching virtually upstairs. You'll hear more from him throughout the months to come. I'm sure he'll be doing presentations more geared towards transit, and he's also the Transit Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board liaison, so he's running that meeting as well. The there's a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program for municipalities. This is being administered or offered by the federal government, and it's for advancing planning and infrastructure projects to improve safety. There's a deadline of September 15th, 2022. And to find out for more information, there's a link on the slide as well as in the liaison report. State Route A1A from south of Lake Avenue to north of Ibis Way. There's a public meeting. This is being conducted by FDOT as part of their public outreach effort for this particular project. And the meeting is in person on June 2nd, 2022 at 6 p.m. It's at Tideline Ocean Resorts, 2842 South Ocean Boulevard in Palm Beach, Florida. And again, there's a website for a link to get additional information on this project for FDOT and the public outreach meeting. There's walk-friendly communities. This is municipalities are encouraged to apply for a walk-friendly communities designation, and that runs through June 15th. And you can go to the website address here, walkfriendly.org, to get more information on it and register your business as a walk-friendly community business. And there's a bicycle friendly business. That's another opportunity that runs through June 15th. And this is an opportunity for a program that recognizes employers for their efforts to encourage a more welcoming atmosphere for bicycle employees, customers, and for the community. And you can register at bikeleague.org/business, and that runs through June 15th. There is National Dump the Pump Day, which is June 17th, and that's encourages communities to kind of leave your car at home and use public transportation, walk or bike, or to use transit in order to alleviate going to the gas pump to get gas. And that's celebrated on June 17th. Next, we have the Port of Palm Beach is doing their master plan update, and they invite the public and all others to provide input on this, on the update of the Port of Palm Beach master plan, and that's running through August 22nd, with the final master plan being completed on December 2022. So to get more information about the master plan update and the meetings that will be held, you can go to planportofpalmbeach.com to get more information. Next, there's a highway rail grade crossing safety action plan. And this is being developed by FDOT. And it's a plan that's been developed and for an updated draft of the highway rail grade crossing safety action plan and submitted to the federal rail, the FRA, for approval. And that you can get more information on this at fdot.gov/rail. And lastly, our TPA governing board meeting will be held this month on June 16th at 9 a.m. It'll be here in this building, in this office at 9 a.m. on June 16th. And you can either attend virtually or in person. And there's a couple website links on the liaison report and in the presentation here to get more information on how to join the meeting or attend it in person. And that's all for the liaison report.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair. And I did just want to let you know that a few of our members have joined us. Sammy Brown, Greg Fagan, and Ryan Rossi have all joined us, and we now do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So we're going to proceed with the agenda item 1C, motion to approve the minutes of May 4th, 2022.
Motion.
We have a motion do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay, please. Okay, motion carries. Okay, we're going to move right to item 1E, which is, comments from the chair and member comments. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Sammy Brown as our newest appointed member from Riviera Beach, and Miss Marissa Das. I do not see her in the room. Is she out virtually? Okay.
Yes.
As our newest appointed member of the Port of Palm Beach, we're excited to have you join the committee. Maybe you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more of why you joined the Citizen Advisory Committee. You have to press the button on.
There's a button. There you go.
There it is.
Good morning, everybody. As
Morning.
she mentioned, my name is Sammy Brown. I formerly worked with the city of Riviera Beach actually a month ago, and I wanted to be on the TPA Citizens Advisory Board, but I couldn't because I worked for an elected official at the time, but I no longer work for that elected official. So I said, well, I'd like to join the board, and they were happy to appoint me. I'm happy to be here. I've recently started, looking through some things and just thinking about generally planning transportation within Palm Beach County. It's become a not a hobby of mine, but just something I'm more so curious about. So I was like, why not join the board? And any insight that I can provide from working with the city of Riviera Beach and people like FDOT and things like that, any expertise that I could share and an asset I can be to this committee, I'd be more than happy to. So thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much. It's really great to have new members to the board. We're here to advocate for the entire county, and really primarily our focus is supporting the TPA's agenda for safe streets. I believe, is that our new member at the door as well?
I believe so.
Okay, so we'll
Pause for a second.
we'll pause for 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to introduce themselves? Take this moment to introduce themselves to Sammy. Hi, welcome. Yeah, welcome. We have so Verissa, we have two new members today. Our first member is Sammy. He's right to my right, representing the city of Riviera Beach, and you are representing the Port of Palm Beach. So welcome. Do you want to say a couple things about yourself, introduce you to the group?
I'm sorry, what?
Would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Yes, my name is Verissa Laldas. I'm honored to be here, and thank you so much for having me. I'm representing the Port of Palm Beach, and we can all work together to come up with effective solutions to any transportation issues our community faces.
Yeah, that's great. Why don't we go around the room and then virtually just to announce ourselves and introduce ourselves officially to Sammy and Verissa. Ramona, can I start with you?
Sure. I'm Ramona Bean, representing District 1 of Palm Beach County, and I'm a native of Florida and happy to help.
Greg?
Yeah, hi, Verissa. My name is Greg Fagan. I live in Palm Beach Gardens. I can't even remember who I represent because I've been on here so long. I think the public at large at this point. I'm a civil engineer designing projects in Palm Beach County for the last 40 years. Grew up here also, and down basically just south of downtown here.
It's wonderful.
Welcome.
Great. Mark, back?
Hi, Mark Forrest, representing the Village of Royal Palm Beach.
Hi, I'm Jim Bonfiglio. I represent Palm Beach County District 5. I've known Marisa for a few years. Sammy, welcome. I don't know you, but just a little brief bio. Former two-term commissioner in Ocean Ridge, chairman of Palm Beach, chairman of Ocean Ridge Planning and Zoning, mayor for a year. I'm an attorney in Palm Beach County for the last 40 some odd years, so very familiar with Palm Beach County and the transportation issues. Welcome to the committee too.
Great. Thank you. My name is Wen Deng. I am representing Boca today. My background is transportation engineering, so I'm happy to be here and serving. Ryan?
Welcome, guys. Ryan Rossi, Boca Raton also. I think we've met a few times, right?
Yeah.
I know we're social media friends, so nice to see you in person. Sammy, I don't know you, but welcome. And you know my background. I'm director of South Florida Water Coalition and involved in numerous things here in Palm Beach County. So thank you.
Hello, everybody. James Garvin, representing the city of Palm Beach Gardens. I'm a graphic designer and brand strategist with kind of a passion and interest in urban planning and transportation. So thanks for allowing me to participate. And welcome to our new members.
Jim Knight, representing District 4, native as well, Palm Beach County, commercial real estate brokerage firm, and I'm down in the south end of the county. My office is in Delray, and I've resided in Boca.
Mike Fitzpatrick, a lifelong resident of Boynton Beach, retired fire lieutenant paramedic. My third bachelor's was a civil engineering degree, and I'm pretty active in the Sierra Club.
I'm Mark Bruner. I think I'm a new guy. I've only lived here 40 years, so that makes me apparently a new guy. After a career in the public sector in Palm Beach County, I represent the Village of Palm Springs.
All right, great, welcome. And we have 4 members virtually joining us. Paula Ryan. Oh,
hello, welcome. I am representing District 2, Greg Weiss, County Commissioner. I was a previous life, affordable housing developer, retired and was a city commissioner of West Palm Beach, and I'm happy to serve on this board. It's a great place to hear about new ideas and opportunities to help move this county along. So welcome.
Great, and we have Vijay.
Hi, Vijay Mishra. I'm with South Florida Water Management District, and civil engineer. Primarily work in water sources and geotechnical engineering. And glad to welcome both of you to this team.
Yeah,
thank you.
And I believe Richard Vasilati.
Hi, good afternoon, new members. Sorry, I'm not there. I have a child with the flu, and I don't think you guys probably want me there knowing that possibly I'm contaminated, but 30-year retired captain from Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. My wife's also a captain of Fire Rescue. I have a 12 and 10-year-old. Obviously seen firsthand the effects of traffic and what it can do to people. And I'm not talking about traffic jams. So I have a lot of interest in making our roads safer in Palm Beach County for us and our visitors. And again, welcome and looking forward to meeting you in person.
And then lastly, online is Terry Brown.
Yes, I've served on the board. I think the only person longer has been Greg Fagan. And I'm 77 years old, native of Palm Beach County, born and raised in Lake Worth. Worked for the state of Florida for 31 years. And my administrator at the time said, this is a committee you need to get on. So it was one of those volunteer appointments where you couldn't refuse. But I'm still here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for you, Marissa and Sammy, that's the entire board that's present. So welcome again. So we're going to move to our action items. The motion to recommend adoption of amendment number 4 to the TPA's fiscal year 22 through 26 transportation improvement plan. At this time, please invite Jason to present on this item.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to do 2 back-to-back presentations. The first one is amendment number 4, and this is pertaining to fiscal year 22 through 26 transportation improvement program. This amendment is at the request of FDOT to modify one of the projects in the transportation improvement program, as well as add a new project to the current transportation improvement program for fiscal year 22 through 26. Following this presentation, we'll go through the action item for the new tip for 23 through 27. And that'll be another presentation, but I'll go over that part as well. But currently, we're operating under the fiscal year 22 through 26 transportation improvement program, and this is an amendment to that document. Now, amendments come to you formally as an action item when specific actions are triggered. And in this particular case, a new project is being added to the transportation improvement program, which requires an amendment, which is the second project. And the first project is when funds are either added, deleted, or changed significantly enough to warrant an amendment. And that's what's happening here. There's an advancement of funds from one year to the next. As with all amendments, only the two projects that I'll present in this amendment will be impacted by taking an action on this item. And no other project will be affected by this amendment, only these two projects. So all the collection of all the other projects within the Transportation Improvement Program are unaffected. The first project to go over is I-95 at Belvedere Road off ramp. This advances the funds from fiscal year 25 to 23. And it also changes the funding source to an advanced construction funding source to ARPA, which is American Rescue Plan Act funds, which are current funds that have become available more recently. And so that enabled the project to be advanced a couple of years because of this funding availability. And so this project will move forward and begin to be constructed in fiscal year 23. Some of the details about this project is overall, the project will widen the roadway to add a second left turn lane onto the southbound off-ramp on Belvedere Road. It'll also add some landscaping and add a sidewalk on the south side of Belvedere Road. And the construction will begin in late 2023 and finish up in late 2024. The other project is a new project that'll be added into the Transportation Improvement Program, and that's at I-95 at the off-ramp on PGA Boulevard, on the westbound section of PGA Boulevard. And this is another project where it will mill and resurface the ramp, and then it'll add a high friction surface treatment on the roadway for to make it more safer, as well as extending the guardrail and installing speed feedback signs for those that are in excess of the speed. It'll give you a feedback warning of how fast you're going. So all of these measures taken collectively are all safety measures to improve the safety at the PGA Boulevard off-ramp on I-95. So that's the two projects. I can answer any questions on those two projects. I'm looking for a motion to recommend adoption of this particular amendment number 4.
Are there any public comments on this item at this time?
There are none at this time.
Okay. Do we have any committee comments on these two items as presented? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Mark first.
One question for the off-ramp there on PGA, are we rebuilding it because there have been accidents, or is this like doing it because we think that they're, in other words, have there been accidents that we said, okay, if the surface was, remilled, that it would be safer, or is it just that we think it's too slippery and we're going to do? In other words, why do we pick that ramp?
Yeah, if I may, a few years ago, there was a report that FDOT produced that looked at all the interchanges up and down this entire district. And then ultimately there were recommendations that came out of it. And I remember precisely that the Belvedere ramp was on that recommendations. I don't know if that the PGA off ramp was also part of that recommendations, but they're meant to address minor adjustments, whether it's restriping or adding a turn lanes or whatever that may be. One, to improve safety, but two is to improve the overall capacity of I-95 to flush people out, because these nodes are a cost severe backup. And so that's my knowledge of why these projects were on the program to begin with.
Okay, I just didn't realize if there was a couple of accidents. So somebody looked at it and said, oh, the off ramp's too slippery, so we're going to remill it and resurface it with the high friction, whatever it was that you guys were doing. So this sounds like something the FDOT said this could be a problem, and it just goes onto the list.
Yeah, I do think that it's one of those, instead of reactive, it's, proactive projects. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Sorry, James.
Just to add to that, as being somebody that frequents that PGA exit ramp couple times a day, it desperately needs to be resurfaced. It's a patchwork of slick and aged. It is a tight quarter of a clover leaf, so it definitely has some capacity issues at peak times. So the guardrail and the speed signs would actually help with, I think, mitigate some of the issues that intersection does. So it's definitely warranted and needed, I think.
Are there any comments virtually, Amanda, at this time?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Perfect. Since there's no more discussion on this item, can I get a motion to recommend adoption of amendment number 4?
I'll make a
So
motion.
I move to recommend adoption of amendment number 4 to the TPA's fiscal year 2022 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program as set forth in item 2A in our agenda.
Okay, great. Can I get a second?
Second.
Are you taking Ryan's second, Madam Chair?
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. So we're moving on to item number 2B, motion to recommend adoption of the TPA's next fiscal year TIP 2023 to 27.
Before I start the item, I'm just going to wait for the presentation to come up and then we'll get started. Okay, so from the last item, you heard those were two projects that are in this existing, that's in this proposed transportation improvement program for the next set of fiscal years, which is fiscal year 23 through 27. The most significant difference between the previous document or amendment and this is the new document that will begin to operate under in the months to come after this is formally adopted by the governing board. And it'll cover the 5-year period from 23 through 27. And so 2022 is in the current TIP document. That'll kind of fall off or go away. And then we'll add a new 5th year, which is 2027. And that's what this document does. And so the Transportation Improvement Program provides all of the funding for all of the projects that will be built over the next 5 years. And through the TPA's mission to collaboratively plan, prioritize, and fund the transportation system, the Transportation Improvement Program is the funding document in which that occurs, the funding for all of the transportation system. Through the development of the Transportation Improvement Program, we first start with developing projects collaboratively with our partners in FDOT to evaluate their feasibility, and then providing a list of projects, TPA priority projects by way of our grant program for local initiatives, transportation alternatives, and state road modifications, taking those list of priority projects, providing them to DOT for their draft tentative work program. They'll integrate those projects into their draft tentative work program and then provide us a snapshot of that once it's developed. And then we'll use that as one of the foundational building blocks to construct the transportation improvement program for the next cycle, which is 23 through 27. And that's what's before you today. Last month, I presented it to you as an informational item in May. And today it's as a formal adoption through all of the committees and the governing board and here in June. And then once this is formally adopted, we'll begin to operate under it in the months following. As a snapshot overall, taken in total, there's over $3.5 billion worth of projects and funding allocated to the transportation system within Palm Beach County. And you can see that SIS capacity, which is Strategic Intermodal System, makes up I-95 and the Turnpike, which are the majority of the SIS capacity. And you see that with the breakdown in funding, state funding makes up the majority of all of that funding for the Strategic Intermodal System. And that's by way of the Turnpike, which is a tolling agency that is able to collect their own revenues and construct projects and maintain the Turnpike independently. And so a lot of those funds are sourced, collected, and built within the Turnpike within Palm Beach County, and it is state funds. So that's why you see the lion's share of that there. The green funding, the local funding, you can see is in most of the operation and maintenance, and that's just maintaining the roadway and the transit system that we currently have built and are operating on. So just two things to note in terms of the overall funding breakout of the whole document itself. To begin with, the largest portion or largest section is strategic intermodal system, the SIS capacity projects, and those makes up about $1.5 billion in total, with the majority of about 900 million in Florida Turnpike projects, followed by I-95 interchange projects, which make up almost 587 million, and then a few other smaller projects in comparison, rest areas and PD&E studies. Those are planning studies for the next future developments along the SIS capacity or the SIS network. Now I'll go over the next three TPA priority projects categories, and the first being state road modifications, SRM. That makes up about $116 million worth of projects, and they're broken down here on the slide. About 54 million, almost half or a little less than half, is adding lanes and reconstructing roadways that are state roads. In addition to that, there's bike lanes, sidewalks, pedestrian safety that are incorporated within the state road modification projects that make up almost 15 million. And that's followed by lighting, the lighting project for State Road 80 going out west, and transit shelters for Palm Tran and for about 7 million. Next is the local initiatives grant program. This is also part of our annual competitive grant program, and it's about $88 million for the 5 years for this particular tip document. And we see about half of that is bike lanes and bike paths, sidewalks, and a roundabout as part of the projects that make up local initiatives, followed by transit capacity projects, both for SFRTA. They're getting some new rail cars, and Palm Tran has applied for and is receiving electric buses to convert their fleet from into electric vehicles. And then there's the transportation planning aspect of this, and this is our UPWP, our annual biannual budget that we pass to operate the agency and complete planning studies each year throughout the business of the TPA. The final program here is transportation alternatives, and this is the smallest of the three annually competitive grant programs, and that makes up about $10 million in total that we see in this tip document. And the majority of it is as intended. It's bike lanes, bike paths, sidewalks, pedestrian bridges, all non-motorized facilities to be constructed off system, so not on the state road system. That's what this program is designed to do. And there's about 10 million programmed on off system projects. And that includes transit shelters, more transit shelters for Palm Tran, as well as the final item here, lighting on the El Rio Trail. So there was a few changes that I updated from last month when you saw this as an informational item. I reached out to Palm Tran and SFRTA to get additional transit funding documentation and verify some of the numbers all the way out to 2027 with their anticipated costs for projects and revenues that they'll be utilizing over the next 5 years, as well as updating and adding any local projects that I reach out to all the municipalities if they have local projects that they'd like to incorporate into the document. I do that at this time, and then also finalizing and updating the appendices, which includes our performance measures, the targets and goals that you see periodically throughout the year. We bring forward specific performance measures when they're ready or up for adoption, and incorporating them into either the long-range transportation plan or the transportation improvement program. And so with that, concludes the presentation. I can answer any questions at this time regarding the
Point of
documents.
order, Madam Commissionwoman. I recused myself the last time we discussed something about this because my office building is one of the projects, and I've received notice from FDOT that they're going to take something. I'm not sure exactly what, and it's on page 2 of table 1, the Boynton Beach Boulevard work from I-95 to US 1. So I think to be on the safe side and to stay consistent, I should recuse myself from discussion and voting and I'll fill out if you give me the form, I'll fill it out while you all discuss this,
Okay.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
I also stepped down on that item. I don't have any taking or anything happen, but I own property that's on Boynton Beach Boulevard. So if I should step down, I'm more than happy to do so.
Okay.
It's at your discretion to do so. And then,
Sure, absolutely. So for the record, James Nick Fliglio, I'm sorry. And Jim Knight will recuse themselves from voting on this item. I see that Michael Fitzpatrick has his card up.
When I first got on the TPA board in 2013, I talked to Nick about a pedestrian bridge across a canal that links Boynton and Delray, and he says, we don't do that. So here we are 9 years later, and apparently we do that now. What's the criteria for having a pedestrian bridge accepted now?
probably depends on the nature of the traffic. I mean, so when you see pedestrian bridges part of our local initiatives and transportation alternatives grant programs, it's usually at the desire of the municipality to apply for a grant to build a pedestrian bridge across the canal, either in addition to an existing bridge, if they're going to replace it, maybe, or add a cantilever bridge onto it, or a completely standalone separate pedestrian bridge, whichever is either most feasible to construct, and there's a willingness of the municipality to apply for and either manage the construction or at least at a minimum operate and maintain the facility after it's completed. So there is the opportunity through grants to construct pedestrian bridges, and specifically transportation alternatives would cover off-system bridges, which are non-state road bridges or non-state roadways that may have the need for a pedestrian bridge, or there's state roads that may have a need for a pedestrian bridge, which would be another program, but you can, I mean, they're open to be considered. It's just going through the process of applying for it.
Right. Same as bike lanes or anything else. Glad to see this change. Thank you.
Sure.
Right. Are there, Sammy Brown?
I just wanted to know, has the deadline for municipalities projects, the grant consideration, has that passed? Or are you guys actively accepting?
Right. So the annual competitive grant program ends at the end of February, and then it'll open back up in October.
Okay, thank you.
So that'll be the window of time to apply for particular grants.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if you're considering, if your community is considering grant application, you probably want to start now and not wait till October, because there's a lot of pre-app work that you have to do, especially community engagement and getting support from the community. Okay. Michael Fitzpatrick, do you still have more comments on the item? Okay, thank you. Are there any virtual comments at this time?
No, Madam Chair, there are no public comments at this time, nor from our virtual members.
Right. Do we still have quorum with 2 members recused?
Let me count. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, we do.
Okay, great, perfect. So if there's no other comments at this time, can I get a motion to adopt the TPA's fiscal year 23 to 27 tip?
Motion to approve.
So we'll let Michael.
I'll take the second. It's all good.
All right, Mark Bruner for the motion, and we have a second from James Garvin. Okay, great. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, all those opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion carries. Item 2C, motion to recommend approval of the environmental research paper, next steps. During the May 4th, 2022 CAC meeting, Mike Fitzpatrick present his environmental research paper findings and recommendations for the CAC member to review and discuss. It was a consensus of the members to present members present to bring the item back for further discussions on next steps and whether to bring the item to the TPA governing board. Before I open the floor for member discussions, staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, and in 2 sentences, Michael, if you can explain the
Sure.
paper to our new member.
Okay, well, actually, I can hand something out. The discussion, we didn't vote on it last time because our quorum walked out the door before the vote. But which may have been a good thing because, okay, thank you. One of the major discussions was what exactly are we asking of the governing board of the TPA? So I wrote up a proposed possible language on that. This is like a draft. As you can see, I've already changed part of it. The first 3 words are redundant if it's passed. So, and I printed it out in with plenty of open space. So, you know, people have recommendations on how to rewrite it or change it or something, that would be fine. So to recap, basically, just as I remember them, there's like an average car drives, burns like 11,500 miles a year and burns like 523 gallons of gasoline, and that gallons of gasoline transfer into like 7 pounds a piece. And for every pound of gas, it produces, or for every gallon of gas, it produces, because it absorbs oxygen, it produces 20 pounds of CO2. So each car produces 5 tons of CO2 per year, 10,000 pounds or better. And there's over 1 million cars registered in Palm Beach County. So that's 5 million tons of CO2 per year, which is probably national averages is cars, those light duty and cars produce 17% of the CO2 in the US, but it might actually be higher, more like 20% of Palm Beach County, because we do not have the amount of industry which also produces it. So like 1 in 5 of the CO2 produced in Palm Beach County may come from cars. And my reading and actually collaborated by staff was that there's 7 categories that written into state statutes that looks at that TPAs are supposed to look at, and this potentially impacts on 3 of them. So I'm pretty confident that this would be in the purview of the TPA, but we're a recommending board. So it's just basically fairly innocuous, I believe, is recommending to the to the governing board that they kick this over to the technical advisory board and have them review it and check out if it is something in the purview. And if it is, start some initial recommendations to be brought back at a later time.
Okay, thank you so much. Mark.
Well, I didn't write mine down, but I gave some thought to the motion also. And actually mine would, pardon me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mine would come in 3 parts. The first is that the CAC formally receive and file this report, so it becomes part of our record, and transmit this report to the Technical Advisory Committee and the TPA board, so that we're basically handing the report to them. The second part of the motion would be to, I don't know whether it's recommend, request, whatever the verb is, that I'll say advise the TPA board to have staff and potentially the technical advisory board review the report and identify within the existing mission and policies of the TPA how electrical vehicles may be encouraged within that scope, within those tasks. The third thing would be to have the technical advisory committee and staff identify if there are other opportunities that are currently not within the mission and the policies of the TPA that they may wish to look at to try and further encourage the use. So it's hand it to them formally. Advise that staff and the TAC should review the report and identify within the existing mission and scope and policies if there are opportunities to encourage electric vehicles. And as another task, look if there are things beyond the existing mission and scope that the TPA may wish to consider to try and encourage vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
That would be a three-part motion that I would make.
Yeah. Let me try to absorb because I apologize. I was not here last meeting. The ask is for the CAC to formally transmit this report to the TAC and the TPA governing board, right? Those are the official name. The second ask is for TPA staff to review the report and make a formal determination if the report is consistent with the TPA's mission, vision, and values statement. And then lastly,
Can you repeat yourself into the microphone with it on, please?
Yeah.
Mike Fitzpatrick and state statutes.
And state statute. Sorry, I'm making my notes as we're speaking. And then lastly is to evaluate the existing mission, vision, and values statement to see if there's any additional modifications to it. So that is what I'm hearing as a motion on the floor. Are there any support for this motion?
Well, I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mark Bruner and a second by Michael Fitzpatrick. So right now we're going to discuss on the motion on the floor. So let's dissect it because there's 3 parts to this. So right now, why don't we focus on receive and transmit this to the TAC and the TPA governing board. Any discussion on this portion of the report? Ramona?
Are we, forgive the question, are we asking the technical committee to tell the TPA to mine the planet basically and help out with, you know, expediting EV vehicles, which is already happening in Florida? I mean, I'm just trying to understand.
Can I answer that?
Yes.
We're not telling them to mine the planet. We're telling them to mine Palm Beach County. And the difference between, yes, this is happening anyway. The difference is that every month it's delayed is another 400,000 tons going into the air. Now this going into the air is going to stay up there 300 to 1,000 years. It's not coming down. And so all this time that is acting as a blanket to every month lost is the blanket's thickening and causing higher temperatures. So yes, it's going to happen with or without us. The question is, how quick do we add any value to speeding up the process? And if we do, then that, like I said, that's 400,000 tons a month. Now, of course, what you're doing is shifting the adoption curve. And so whatever, you know, calculus formula, you figure out the difference between the 2 curves, what the area under the curve, that's how much is not going into the atmosphere. And that is a significant amount. Since I wrote this, I'm starting to read on like wind turbine. So like this new giant wind turbine says, this is going to offset 500 tons a year. And in Mexico, it's a giant one apparently. And that only amounts to 1 month of what Palm Beach County is pumping into the environment. So just to have it not go up there is very significant, and every month counts. So if our actions here delay it 6 months, or increase the adoption quicker for 6 months. That's 2.5 million tons. That is a significant amount. So I'm saying we should do something rather than just sit on our hands.
Michael, I just want to remind you that you reminded me earlier that you have to leave by 2:15. It is now
3:15.
3:15. I apologize.
Yeah.
Yes. So does anybody want to discuss the report being provided to the TAC? No comment. Oh, VJ is on. I apologize. VJ virtually. Yes.
Thanks, Chair. So as I had mentioned last time also, the only hesitation that I have had with this one is that as Michael has said that it's happening, it's already happening. And with this current fuel prices, the escalation and the process of transition has been much faster than what we had hoped. I know few of friends who I work with, they have already started to transition. Everybody is worried about that $5 per gallon gas. So it's already happening. It's again, in the previous discussion, I had said that if it is our aspirational goal, then the goal has to match with it. It shouldn't just be about transitioning from the internal combustion to the electric. It should also be matched with the goal of power generation, because again, all we are doing is we are transitioning the internal combustion to this the gas powered power plant. So yes, it's a great goal, but if we really want to put it out as a goal, then we need to be a little bit more aspirational on this one.
Thank you. Yeah, Ramona, do you still have comments on this item?
I do, and do forgive me. I'm also trying to ask why, I guess I'm just trying to understand what our lane is on the Citizens Advisory Committee. Maybe we could repeat that for our new members today too. I just don't know I don't disagree in context and what you're talking about and philosophically. I mean, it's great information. I really appreciate all the hours you put into it. I worked on a congressional level. I was an appointee in George W. Bush's administration for Treasury. I understand the research and all the work that you probably put into this, and I appreciate that. I'm just trying to understand what is our point right now to move on this. So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. And the question to staff is, what is the role of a CAC advisory member? We'll give you
Yeah, let us pull up
a moment to pull up the official.
the operating procedures for the committee, and we can share that on the screen. in a
Great,
moment.
thank you. And at the same time, we'll take comments from Mark.
Yeah, I think that was similar to my question. I was just kind of curious on what can the CAC or the TPA do to, promote this as far as what you're talking about. I'm not sure what our capacity is to promote electric vehicles.
Give us one moment
Yep,
to just finish pulling this up.
Absolutely. James Garvin, please.
So I'm rather conflicted on this topic because while I feel it's very important to have a discussion about what as a county we're doing to promote the transition and ease it for the residents, ease it for the municipalities, I think it's rather important discussion to have. The more we talk about this, the more I realize that we're trying to thread a needle as far as purview goes, trying to figure out like, is there an infrastructure angle to this? Because clearly that's the only thing we have purview over is roadways, infrastructure, how infrastructure funds are spent, right? That's the only thing we have any minor influence over, right? So if you want to talk about CO2 emissions, that's probably not going to fit. It's a question of like charging infrastructure is basically where we end up at. That's where we're going to end up at if we keep talking about most likely. So the question then becomes, do we need to talk to does the governing board need to be made aware that there's grants and funding for electrification and charging stations out there to be implemented? They're probably already aware. So what are we really getting at here? What's in our purview? Is it really worth staff time, governing board time, XYZ to talk about something that's already being talked about? So while I appreciate the effort and I'm giant supporter of this topic, I'm still equally perplexed as exactly what our role is as a Citizens Advisory Council in this, especially with an organization that's tasked with helping to organize the distribution of infrastructure funds. You know, that's where I keep coming back to.
All right, thank you. So thank you, staff, for putting on the operating procedure of role and function in pursuit of section 339.175. I think we can I'll read what's on screen here. Whether it's to the public participation plan development. And one thing that stands out is that the proposed TPA policy or position statements. I think that is consistent with the request that's on the table right now for TPA staff to review the consistency of of this proposed study with the mission and vision and value statement. I think, am I making some rational sense? I'm sorry, Mark, I'm looking at you to help me on this.
Yes, I think so. If you look, I guess, you know, going sort of to your question, is what are we doing? I mean, as citizens of Palm Beach County, we've received some information. Do we, as a citizens of Palm Beach County, believe that the transition to electric vehicles is something that the TPA may be able to do something additional to encourage? And should we tell as the CAC, communicate to the TPA board that they should look at that and do more if there's more to be done?
So it goes back to what James mentioned earlier, is that we're an advisory board on state and federal funding, on how those dollars are being allocated and being utilized. What's come out of this is if it's like to support electrification is the electric charging infrastructure. And maybe another question that I would ask back to Michael and for you, Mark, is that this report that, and we know that it has an effect on CO2 emission, right? Driving electric vehicles and shifting to this, that the car companies are already pushing to shift anyway. How is this going to affect the dollars that's being allocated to communities throughout Palm Beach County? Should that be, if I may, should that be a subcategory or an eligible item for, local initiative grants? Maybe it should get to something that granular. And I'm not sure if transmitting this report to the TAC is going to get us that answer. Mark. And then Michael, I
think
apologize.
the short answer you kind of snuck in there is that what you just talked about is probably a little too granular. I think at this point, again, it's a thing where, do we as citizens believe that the process of electric vehicles being incorporated is happening? Is there anything that we as citizens feel the TPA should consider to accelerate that process, to encourage that process? And now the wherefore and the why and the how and how much would be things that the TPA board and the TAC and the staff essentially work out. I mean, again, our role as citizens, I see, is to say, we think this is important, and we suggest to the board that they should see if there are other opportunities.
Michael?
Well, first of all, one of the things that could be done is, yes, it is coming along. I mean, it is going to happen with or without us, but the hidden hand of capitalism is blind. So if in the report, if you saw, I went out and took pictures of this big charging station out on the Turnpike service plaza. So how many of those do we need in Palm Beach County? That's the kind of infrastructure we're talking about. Is how many people are going to be charging at home at night? Is there, if it switches over to gas stations, are we going to need as many gas stations, because are they going to be charging mostly at home? these are questions I don't know. This is the kind of question, this is a planning question to, if it happens, it's going to be rough and not all that smoothly. So if there's any planning involved, that'll help save a lot of money and a lot of, misdirection. That would be something I believe the TPA should be involved in, that kind of planning to help smooth out the process.
Although I agree that that level of planning needs to happen, but I don't agree that it's going to be utilizing public dollars to what that it should be used within the public's right of way, right? Think about all the charging infrastructure that's there. That's all private development, even if it's on the turnpike, that's all private on site, on their site. At the there's new charging stations that's popping out at like all the Wawas, right? That's all private. We're at the TPA, we're talking about using public dollars within the public right of way. I'm not sure how we can advise the TPA to be conducting a studies that's not related to for the overall public usage.
Okay, then that's, something everybody has to
Yeah, it's
figure out for
it's a
themselves.
physical thing for me, so I'm having difficulty.
Now, as far as the role and function of this board, I'm not sure how many of the role and functions made up, where did those come from? Are they in state statutes, or are they what was people have, sat around and figured out what we should be doing? Is there any role in this for other than rubber stamping, which comes down? Is there any, as Mark was pointing out, is there any way for advice to bubble up from the populace, or is it always, everything we do top down and that's it? So obviously, I believe there should be some input from, citizens that bubbles up. So that's something else you will have to think if that's, important to you or not.
Great, thank you. I will, in order, if I may, these are the name cards that I saw. James, and then Paula Ryan, and then Greg.
Oh, I'm sorry. How's that? Better. Great. One of the things that I think is more in our wheelhouse is the infrastructure. For example, charging stations. Now, as a person who drives an electric car and has driven one for a few years now, one of the things that I keep track of is where are the charging stations, and are they public, private? Are they do they cost? How much do they cost? Which is a part of the system that I have signed up for? So maybe one of the things that we can look at is can we, for example, require as a condition of building a new parking lot or building a new parking garage or putting in a gas station, require a certain number of electric charging stations per parking space, and do that as a condition of getting their permit. That's, I think, something that's in our wheelhouse. It's planning and zoning. And it's something that I think it would encourage more people to purchase electric vehicles if they know that there's a charging station, preferably the high-speed charging stations as opposed to the slow pokes. But I mean, I know pretty much where the charging stations are around my house and around my office building. And there's not that many, but if we could look at whether or not we can put that in as part of a building code or a planning and zoning code requirement for future construction, and maybe require it, for example, if you improve a parking lot or improve a parking garage by 50% or more of its value, then you have to comply with the current code and put in new charging stations. Things like that, I think, are more in our wheelhouse than some amorphous kind of statement that we should look at other areas of trying to encourage electric vehicles.
Yeah,
That's
and
my thought.
right, thank you. I don't believe this board has the ability to influence planning and zoning.
No, we can make a recommendation, though. We can recommend to the TPA that they look at that and see if it's something that they can do, or it's within their wheelhouse to do. That's all I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a little bit more concrete than what we're talking about now.
Okay, Paula Ryan, please.
Hi, thanks. So let me just, two comments. One, I think the time we have spent talking about this is more than what it was anticipated. We didn't want to get bogged down in it. But I believe what he's asking us to do is to just basically raise our hand as a Citizens Advisory Committee and say, we believe, and we're hearing from our people in the ground, that this is important, and we think it's important enough to send you guys a letter to say, we care about this, keep your eye on it. There's nothing we can do. We're not a planning and zoning entity within local government, which can make those kinds of recommendations that Jim was talking about. But just the mere fact that you're asking us to put forward something that says, we believe this is an important issue. I don't think no harm, no foul. Doesn't put anybody on the spot. It just kind of lets everybody know we think it's important. And secondly, the Biden administration has just made an announcement that is part of their efforts to deal with the higher gas prices, to put more push on electric vehicles. So I think we're going to see something coming out of the administration. Don't have a feeling one way or the other, but if we put forward something that is out of the ordinary for what CAC typically does, and it's not running afoul to what our job is or expectations, it just is basically saying, we believe this is a priority, and we're hearing that it's a priority, and we hope that, the TPA makes it a priority. And those are my comments.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah. Thank you. I think it's important for us as a Citizens Advisory Committee to stay in our lane. The electrification of the transportation industry has already started. It's coming whether we like it or not. The automobile manufacturers do not want to make internal combustion engine vehicles any longer. There's a lot less parts in an electrical vehicle, a lot less employees. We're going to have electric cars and vehicles and transportation components. I think what everybody is saying around the table, and Michael, thank you for putting that paper together, is there does need to be a comprehensive planning effort in some manner for the electrification adoption on state, county, city highways, facilities, et cetera, which does take a lot of different agencies. It's the building departments, it's the planning departments, et cetera. So if we just go to, the 10,000 foot level and say that we see a need for a clear process for the ultimate electrification and the convenience in these transportation facilities, the biggest detriment of having an electrical vehicle today is if you want to drive to North Carolina, where are you going to stop and charge it? And we are Florida, we're a tourist state. There's not that many open electric charging facilities other than the Teslas in certain areas, and some of the municipal buildings like the city West Palm Beach parking garage has, and a lot of municipal owned buildings have it. But if we can just stay at just a simple recommendation that the transportation infrastructure adopts some form of a transitionary electrification component in the planning, then I think we're doing our job, and not get into the minutia of all of what's happening in the atmosphere, et cetera, because I think we all know that that's just inherent. But let's make it easier. So as we're planning, or as we're building projects, building roads, building buildings, that we know that we have to have this component, because the can does keep getting kicked down the road. When did Tesla come out? Over 10 years ago now? And still it's how do I charge my car? Where do I do it? et cetera, or those of us that have corporate vehicles, you know, how are we going to charge those vehicles every single day or if they're going 300, 400, 500 miles? So I think let's stay in our lane. Let's just leave it at a higher level and just make a recommendation that we see a need for it. And let's let the experts that are in it every day figure out how to coordinate that between the planning agencies and the different 39 municipalities, et cetera, as to, you know, how do we have a clear, concise, comprehensive effort for the adoption of electrical vehicles over a period of time.
Okay, thank you. Do you have no comment, Ryan? Okay, perfect. Why don't we end with Michael, and then, because we do have a motion and a second on the table.
The comment was that we're here to just vote on approving funds. But if you look at the liaison report, we're more than that. There's like walk-friendly communities, National Dump the Pump Day. So the TPA is also an educational and a resource agency. And as we're, you know, this transition is upon us, and it's going to be, as pointed out, there's like 39 municipalities in Palm Beach County, each with their own building department, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody has any answers. It's which agency in Palm Beach County should, if you're just looking at the name of agencies, you believe should have some answers and some guidelines. And of course, I believe that would be the Transportation Planning Agency. So this is coming so fast that there's nobody's putting anything together too well yet. So yes, this is all catch as catch can to some degree, but the Transportation Planning Agency should have a handle on this and be able to offer some advice to all these municipalities. Now, as if the motion recommended by Mark is a little too complex, then if it fails, then I would like to resubmit, which is, I think, is more in line with Greg's idea of just land and you know, like I can't remember her name, but raising hand and saying, hey, look at this, and bring it to the governing board and let them do with it as they may.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, I have Paula Ryan.
Paula, that's who.
Thank you. One of the things that I wanted to point out about West Palm Beach and the fact that more and more buildings are being built with charging stations, both commercial and residential, is that we made it a policy, and that when developers came to the city, that policy was in our books and records and land use and zoning, and it gave the developer something to put in that we thought was important for the future. So as a planning board, I think it's appropriate that we look to the TPA to come out with some policy recommendations. But again, as a CAC, that's not our directive. But I do believe that letting the TPA know that this is an issue that we've spent, a half an hour plus more and whatnot talking about. So with that, if you could reread the motion so I understand what we're voting on, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Amanda.
the motion is shared on the screen for everybody in person to see as well. But just so you're all aware, it says that we will formally file the report and provide the board and TAC and provide to the board and TAC. Secondly, TPA staff and/or TAC is to review the report and provide summary of how it fits into the current planning process. And third, TPA staff and/or the TAC is to review additional opportunities to fit into the current planning process.
Okay. Mark?
Just, this may be a nit, and it's up to the, I don't know whether I said current planning process or mission and policies. Now, I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but I think that I was thinking in terms of mission and policies, planning process may be the same thing. It's up to you all to decide. I was just thinking in some different words. If you're comfortable with these words, we can go forward with it.
It looks like staff is updating it to reflect that change, to read as the current mission and policies. Thank you. Sorry, we were typing as fast as we could while you were speaking.
Okay, the motion is still consistent with, on the table, is still consistent with your original intent. And so we have a motion on the table from Mark Bruner and a second by Michael Fitzpatrick. I do believe that this is going to be a roll call vote, or
We can if you would like.
okay. Or if not, we can do a,
I think a roll call vote will be helpful.
yeah, that'll be perfect. Okay.
Awesome. I will go ahead and start that roll call vote. Ryan Rossi,
Yes.
Michael Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
James Garvin,
No.
Mark Bruner,
Yes.
Ramona Bean,
No.
Paula Ryan,
Yes.
Jim Knight,
No.
James Bonfiglio,
Yes.
Richard Vazzalotti,
Yes.
Marissa Laldas,
Can I motion to table this and digest it, or
yeah, you can abstain if you'd like.
I would like to abstain at this time.
No, I'm sorry. The abstaining is if you have a financial conflict. So you either have to vote yes or no.
All
Are
right, yeah,
you asking if you can do a motion to table?
I will vote yes.
Sammy Brown.
Yes, definitely.
No, it's Sammy Brown,
Yeah,
not Terry
sorry.
I'm
Brown.
sorry. I thought you said Terry Brown.
Nope, Sammy Brown.
Yes.
Mark Forrest,
No.
VJ Mishra,
No.
Francisco Paco Gil is absent. Myron Uman is absent. Terry Brown.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Greg Fagan,
No.
Albert Richwagon is absent. Wen Dang.
Yes.
Thank you. And it does pass 9-5.
All right, thank you so much. All right, there are no information items
I
today.
apologize, Chair.
Oh,
Sorry, it's not over yet. Just a little clarification. So the first part of the action was to bring it to the governing board and to the TAC. And we,
yes.
and we typically, so the operating procedures we passed recently, sort of, we'd like to get direction from you all in the manner of which to present it to the board. So we can put it in the backup with the paper, with his paper. And then if you all want to have a representative there to discuss it, I didn't know if there's a best format for you all to go to the governing board with.
Usually the report is in the backup and it becomes
Okay.
an informational item.
Yep, so we can do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if we want a presentation or it's part of the staff report.
If you're requesting the item to be an informational, I'm sorry, Valerie Nielsen, Interim Executive Director. For clarification, if the CAC is requesting this item to be an information item on the board agenda, information items are usually with a presentation. We would request that a representative, since this is an item brought to the board by the CAC, present this item. So we need that clarification. Are you asking for it to be in the backup as an administrative item, as an action item with a presentation by one of the CAC members that you designate, or an information item but with a CAC member speaking to the item?
Yeah, I'm gonna look towards Michael Fitzpatrick since he's.
Well, based on what I learned from last meeting, informational items can become action items depending on if somebody makes a motion to do that, correct?
Yep.
So it doesn't really matter if it's an action item or an informational item. If there's somebody that's interested on the governing board, then a motion could be made. So whatever's, I don't care either way, what staff wants to
I
put it in action or,
Yeah, but I think what,
but yes, I'm happy to make a presentation and just give me some guidelines on timelines, amount of time and
so
adjust accordingly.
usually if you're gonna be representing the CAC on presenting this item to the board, I believe staff is going to ask for your presentation and all the backup information before a certain date.
Sure.
Before it can get into as an informational item.
Mhm.
Okay.
No problem. When would it appear? Would it be July or June 16th or?
It would not
July?
be in the next item agenda because that agenda has already been advertised.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hasn't, Brenda, it'll be going out next week. 'Cause the meeting's on June 16th.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize.
Can you bring up, I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at the motion, but can you bring it up on the screen so we're on the same page?
Yes, we'll pull that up right now.
So the motion that passed is to formally file the report and provide to the board and the TAC. So we can provide that in different ways. That's what we're asking for clarification. Also to review the report and provide a summary of how it fits. That's for us to review the report and provide a summary of how it fits into the current mission and policy, if this is in our mission. And review additional opportunities to fit into the current mission and policies.
Right.
So to me, that's where I'm asking for clarification in terms of formally file a report and provide to the board and TAC. Are we sending an email? Are we putting it on an agenda? That's what I would like some clarification on the
I'm gonna
CAC's
defer
request.
to
as a
Michael.
whole.
This report got sent out to this committee a couple times perhaps on email and nobody read it. So I think it needs to be in the backup for whichever, July meeting or something.
So would you like to do a presentation?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But I'll work with staff and cut it down to, revise it and practice a couple of times.
So typically, so the ask is for this to be as an informational item with the backup. And
Correct.
then Michael, you're gonna be doing the presentation.
Sure.
That's the ask. Okay. Okay, and so it's really just item 1. The 2 and 3 is for staff to
Staff
clarify.
can report back on that.
Right.
Okay.
Does it fit or not? Yes.
Okay, because the board will ask, did the committee as a whole request this be brought to us as an information item on our agenda? So that's why I wanted that clarification on that motion, because it's not clear on the
as a
file and
whole.
report.
Right, but it's according to our vote, it's not as a whole, right? It's a vote of 9 to 5.
But the committee as a whole voted past the
Right,
motion to bring
right.
it to the board. So
Right.
that was in what fashion?
Paula Ryan.
Thank you. My just point of clarification, isn't this really going to be up to the TPA board chair as to whether or not they bring it forward and in what format?
Currently in our operating procedures, and that's something that the board asked for us to talk to them at the next meeting to give an overview, but currently it says that if the committee as a whole votes to bring an item to the board, they should indicate in what fashion and it can be added onto the agenda in that way. So that's the current operating procedures. So that's why I was asking for clarification if that's what the committee as a whole was voting on. And then we would need a representative to speak to the item.
So, Madam Chair, 2 points to clarify. the number of votes was miscalculated. It's actually 10-6. The majority still did pass it, but the number we originally gave you was incorrect. The other item is that we did, on the screen, we did pull up our operating procedures, which is what Valerie is referring to, where it does state in the second paragraph on the screen that when an advisory committee requests to add an item to the TPA governing board meeting or agenda. So in the last part of this, it's asking for the committee to provide the manner and format in which the matter should be presented. So that's what Valerie is asking for clarification. If it's an information item, and then who's presenting it?
It's an informational item. Mr. Michael Fitzpatrick is going to do the presentation.
Yeah, we should have jumped up before when the motion was being passed for that clarification, but wanted to get that direction.
Okay, so items 4A through 4C are informational only. There's no staff presentations at this time. And I believe the dates here are still, are the dates correct? The governing board summary points, May 19th.
I'm sorry, no, these are incorrect. The June 6th, 2020, 16th, excuse me, for the governing board summary points. And then everything else is correct, items B, C, and D.
Okay, perfect. So the next meeting is July 6th of 2022. Right after the 4th of July, please attend. I hear you.
I think I've already given notice that I'm attending remotely, because I know I'm going to be out of town. I'm out of town, yes, yes. I've told-
Madam
I've told
Chair,
staff
are you
already.
adjourning the meeting? Are you adjourning the meeting?
Oh, I apologize. Meeting's adjourned, but apparently we have people that's gonna be out of town next time.
But I can attend by remotely, so I don't have. a problem doing
Remotely, okay. Yeah, if you can, I'll just send Margie
That
an
already.
email on that. That'd be great. Thank you.